Hi everyone, welcome to the very first episode of All About Skill, a podcast that talks about how to build scalable systems. I'm your host Vidhi Chuk, an AI strategist and a digital transformist. This podcast brings to you the experiences of the industry leaders who have already witnessed scales and are here to share their knowledge nuggets with us to help us in our journey to scale. Our very first guest is a seasoned data professional with over 25 years of industry experience, Ramdas Narayanan. Ram touches upon the multidimensional aspect of skill and explains the challenges concerning data management systems. I'm sure you'll have a lot of takeaways from this knowledge rich episode. So let me take a moment to share my highlight with you. I've had the fortune of being mentored by industry veterans. So when Ram shares the significance of having a right mentor, I could not agree more. And how can I not mention the support I've received from Ram in my own learning growth? So I'll not hold you any longer and would look forward to hearing what is your highlight from this take. Let's dive in. Hi, Ram. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Vidhi. Thanks for having me. And thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about data, AI, and anything related. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I look forward to discussing all things scale with you, specifically with focus on the role of data architecture in building scalable systems. But before
Sure.
we delve deep into the technical discussion today, Ram, I would really like to put emphasis on the multidimensional aspect of scale. Scale has different meanings for different people. But what comes to your mind first when we think of scale?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind in terms of scale is how do we use data effectively to handle all business outcomes? Given that we have such an influx of data. It's coming at such a great velocity that we are not, to be very honest, it's becoming very challenging to handle all of that. Just even collecting all of the data, making sure that it's all going to be relevant, right? That itself is a big challenge. So that's what I would say scale is. Scale for me is how do we harness the piles of data that we get or the amount of data that we get to solve our business problems and also to satisfy all the business outcomes. That's the way I would put it.
Yeah, thanks for putting it in context of data, Ram. But I would say that before we go into that technical side of it, I would also like to touch upon the definition of scale, which is generalized as growth. So, scale, I think,
Okay.
basically means growth, right? And if I put it in the context of career growth specifically, I would like to know from you what would you consider as the golden moment of your career, an opportunity, for example, that you said yes, which happened to be at the right time and it turned out to be the best decision of your career.
Yeah. So I think that's a very great question. And the way it happened, I was not conscious that it was really a golden moment. Let me put it that way. Because when I started off my career and I was looking for my first job, I actually got a job as a UX client server developer, mainly focusing on UI, right? In those times in 90s, early 90s, client server was just beginning to making inroads, into the information computer industry. And I was working as a UI developer for roughly 4 years at that time after my first job. And it so happened that, we were always trying to present information in a very user-friendly format. People were beginning to understand the concept of UI, and I had a great boss who was kind of mentoring me on how we should present information. And it so happened that as I was doing it, since, unconsciously or consciously, we were dealing with a lot of data at that point, right? We had our Sybase and SQL Server databases, and we were always getting data out of that and presenting it to the users and customers. And it so happened that one of the senior database administrator, we were just having a chat, a very casual chat, and he told me, "Hey, what do you want to do? Like now that you have been doing this for a while, do you want to continue as a UI developer, or you have any interest in becoming a DBA?" He just sparked that question. Okay, so then I kind of thought about it. Then I said, "Yeah, why not?" I said, "Hey, since You are the kind of the expert here. Why not I mentor under you? And I don't have any problems becoming a DBA, and I'll give it a shot. That's how it happened. And then he said, okay, fine. Now, then the whole process happened, and off I go becoming a SQL Server DBA, and I get taken to the server room, and I get started my training. The so-called server room in those days, a very few servers. But at that time, it was mind-boggling for me because I was always a UI person. I had no idea what was going on behind the scenes, and there I got my first taste of what data is and all that stuff. But if I fast forward now and if I look back at that moment, maybe in a very unconscious way, I made the right choice, I would say, right? Because today, I was talking to a senior person. He's saying the best place to be today is where you can use data and do analytics, which is very useful for the business. And that's the best place to be because a lot of businesses have raised to the or I should say they're kind of becoming more aware that if they want a competitive advantage, they need to use data very well. So that way, that might have been my golden moment because after that, if I look at my career, right, I then slowly moved into business intelligence because somehow I felt that I need to start learning about SQL Server DTS. Somehow it very fancied me because it was a very visual representation of data was going to flow. Then I started learning that tool. Then I joined the financial services company early in 2002, and I got a project in that, and that stimulated even more interest in that space. And after that, I've been pretty much somehow traveling with that, same enthusiasm, of course, with a lot of highs and lows, but somehow holding on to it till today. So maybe it's a long answer, but that could be my golden moment.
No, actually, this is a great answer because I think, would it be right to say that, somebody posing the right question to you made you think about whether you want to make a change, and then you being receptive to that change, actually listening to that and taking up that mentorship opportunity, like getting mentored. This underpins the importance of having the right mentor who makes you more aware of the choices that exist. So I think one thing led to another and then to another. That's the, I think, success recipe of your career. Is it
Yeah,
right to say?
that's I think you kind of structured it very well. And I think that is one thing I want to add, Vidhi, is that I see a lot of that in the present day working generation. They are able to nicely put it in a context and structure it very well. And I guess where I come from, or my generation, a lot of things were very ad hoc. Okay, it's like you said, somebody posed a question, you said okay, and then you went about it. But now the way you are saying it, right? You are saying that hey, it was somebody who was making you look at the whole environment, give some choices, and then you reacting to it. That's a very structured way of putting it, and I like that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that from you because, Ram, to be very frank, I have received a lot of support from you and I've learned a lot from you based on LinkedIn engagement and offline and online otherwise as well. And I consider you as my mentor. And hearing from you that somebody at in early 90s when you mentioned that there was a mentor who came in your life, so it looks like all the dots are getting connected.
Oh, thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. And I want to, before I forget, I want to congratulate you on all the accolades and awards you're getting in the AI space. I think as we go through this conversation, I would also like to get your thoughts on AI because I think it is becoming more and more important. And I think there are a lot of very interesting discussions happening around AI as well. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to do that. Yeah. And okay, so let's talk about another aspect of scale.
Hmm.
What I see about scale, like like taking an analogy from solopreneurs, like somebody just posted on LinkedIn that earlier we used to talk about entrepreneurs, now there is a term called as solopreneur. So when you start as an individual and then you take your work, organization, or single person company to scale. Now this is everybody's wishful thinking to scale. You have a lot of user client base and a lot of data coming in. It could be in any context, right? But when you scale, you don't know when would be that day that you can say, okay, now I've scaled enough, now I'm working at scale.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
doesn't really happen with one person, is what I believe. You can correct me if I'm wrong. What I think is that it requires a whole lot of support system. There are people around you, surrounding you, who kind of guide you. They can be your sounding board. So in your case, I'm very curious to know what has been the force behind your spectacular journey.
So, first things first, like you said, there were some great leaders or very good managers, I would say. I think the beauty of that was that it was never imposed, but I think they asked the right questions. So when they ask the right questions, then you automatically, kind of are, sucked into that discussion, because now that is, hey, that is something new that I've not heard, right? So I think that is a big part. Having good leaders, or good mentors or good managers who are willing to discuss options. I think that is very important. And I think the second thing is that embracing, for example, when agile came into play, everybody was doing waterfall. Agile came into play, but then agile was very focused initially on very UI based development, right? But then this whole explosion happened where everybody wanted to start doing agile. To be very honest, based on my experience, doing agile for a data-driven project is extremely challenging based on my experience. But if you have a leader who completely embraced that concept, right, and he put himself behind it, and he said, "Hey, you know what? We are going to do this. Yes, there will be challenges, but we will systematically overcome them." I think to hear that is, I think, a huge motivation, and it really kickstarted the process, because till that time, unfortunately, because of the way people were working, they tend to be very siloed. Even though you say you're part of an organization, etc., but the work got very siloed, right? But Agile tried to break that wall, tried to bring people together. I think it, in a way, kickstarted the whole process of bringing the techies and business people closer. Because till that time, it is like you kind of throw it over the wall, right? Hey, this is your thing, and I'm not going to do anything till you, fix it or do whatever, and then only I'll take it up. That caused a lot of wasted time and effort, right? Whereas Agile broke that. And I think to have a leader who completely believed in it, and he rallied the organization, to follow it and achieve the end state, I think it's a huge force. Because to be very honest, sometimes you don't get that opportunity all the time. You don't get it all the time, right? And you always have this itchy feeling that, hey, what am I doing? Am I contributing really anything, to the bottom line or the business outcome? But I think that was the biggest force for me. And to date, I think that's been one of my uh, biggest and probably the most proud experience, I would say, memorable experience of going through that journey. So, yeah, that's the main force.
Yeah, actually, those are really powerful sound bites. But I want you to elaborate more on the challenges that you mentioned, that for a data-driven project, adopting an agile mindset and agile project structure is really difficult, and there are challenges that come with it. Can you just zoom in more on those challenges?
Yeah, so Vidhi, right, with data projects, right, anything data driven, there are always dependencies. You're always
Hmm.
dependent on something, right? Either you're, if you're in the middle, especially, let's say you're a hub and you are receiving and providing data, you get pretty much hammered from both ends, because you have a dependency on the source, and somebody else is dependent on you. And if everything doesn't go in that precision, right, or in that within that SLA, you are going to be always putting out fires. So I think that is number one. So when you have dependency and when you want people to be agile, the first thing is everyone should commit to being agile. That is very important, right? If you are saying I'm going at say 40 kilometers per hour, and everybody better be around that same. You don't want somebody at 20 and somebody at 60, because then it's going to be a train wreck. So I think data dependency was a huge challenge. Second thing, getting all the business partners to really get into the concept of agile was a big mindset shift, because they're used to like project management, right? Okay, project goes through analysis, design, implementation, UAT, production, right? It is very waterfallish. Making that change into agile was a big challenge, because now people have to they have to collaborate more, right? It's basically everybody has to come to the table. We cannot be in some faraway place just dictating things. And I think somehow humans somewhere like giving directives. I think directives don't work very well with agile. So that is a big mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
You have to be there. It might not be the best day for me, but I have to be there. So that is a big challenge. And third thing is funding, right? Now, because you are moving from a project-based funding to what is called activity-based costing, like they call it this ABC analysis, right? And where your funding is based on all the work you have in the pipeline, and it's just not based on projects. And I think that caused a lot of changes to be done in how money is allocated. So that was a very big challenge. So I think I would say at a broad level, these were the big rocks, and the main goal was how do we uh, try to chip away the rock and make it smaller and smaller. So that was the whole purpose of this. So I hope I articulated that well.
Yeah, actually, those are some of the points that are new to me as well. I really want to ask follow-ups on this, but the
Yeah,
very
yeah,
first
sure.
thing, yeah, the very first thing that you mentioned is about collaboration, which I think is, one of the issues that I've also faced in all the work that I've done so far. And you correctly put it, like somebody who is working at a speed of 20 and the other person who is at 40, the one who is working slowly will become eventually a bottleneck to the entire
Hmm.
pipeline and deliverable. And we want everybody to be on the same page. So whose responsibility is, like, who would be the one orchestrator, if I can say, who can tie everything together and make sure that we are working with quality at the right pace? Because if you want everybody to just buckle up, they might be having dependencies, which is a little cyclical. Who would be the person who would break away dependency, kind of unblock everyone without compromising on the quality? Whose ownership is
Yeah,
this?
yeah, definitely. So I think when it comes to ownership, I think I would say it is a group of people. I think that's the way we solve that problem. So what happened is it was a rocky start. Definitely, when we started, the whole concept of PA planning was new to everyone. But the way that I think breaking the ice happened is okay, get everybody in one place, right from the developer, tester, all the way to the portfolio and stakeholders, right? You get everyone in a room, put things on the board. Okay, this is what we want to achieve in the next 10 weeks. Start detailing. And there is a very important concept that happens in PI planning. It's called the program board, where it is a visual representation of all the work that is going to be done in 10 weeks. And the most important thing, you highlight all the dependencies. So if you see, it will be a very messy picture because the dependencies are so high. The thread is going in all possible directions. So what happens, right? You have that on a board. You go like maybe 2 feet away from the board, and you get a good look at the whole picture, and based on that you slowly start untying the knot. Okay, which is the system that has the most dependency, right? And which is the system that has the least dependency. And and then you bring in the architecture. That's where architecture plays a very big part. You talk about data architecture.
Yes.
The purpose of data architecture, that's where it really shines, is that do you have the conduit or the plumbing or the runway to make these things happen, right? And if you do not, it's fine. I think it's fine to completely highlight here there is something broken here or we don't have that capability. And I think that's where you use data architecture very effectively. Your solution engineers, data architects, that's their kind of the sweet spot. That's where they can contribute. They can come up with interesting ideas, innovative ideas on how they can solve the problem. Maybe we don't have a good data transport to get the data from A to B. Maybe we are pushing Excel files through emails. No, we need to stop that. You need to have proper data pipelines. That's an innovation. I mean, that's a big step. Imagine if you're a manager and if you have to collect 10 spreadsheets to build a report. That's a very inefficient way of doing things. Data architecture can solve that problem, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's a dependency for you. You have to wait on 10 people to get everything. Now the data architecture can come and say, hey, no, we'll have this automated for you. And by 8 a.m., the data will be ready for you. There you go. You solved a dependency problem, right? So I think it is a very systemic way we did it. Yeah,
Mhm.
it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen overnight. There are no instant gratifications here. I'll make that very clear because
Yeah.
I think we as IT people have gotten maybe spoiled in a way because of instant gratifications. But
Yeah.
but good things will come. You have to be very persistent, and that's where the leadership matters, right? There is somebody who's backing you. Like if you're a data architect, you have the support. Yeah, I will get the funds for you. I will provide the budget for you to make these infrastructure upgrades happen. So now you see, all of a sudden, we took a very small dependency and see how many components just came out of it. And I think that's the force you want with you, right? You want people to
Yes.
back you mentally and financially.
Yeah, because I think adoption is of these leadership sponsorship, some people say, and then those who advocate your decision and you have a back, these kind of sponsorship really matter. But one thing that you mentioned, I think it really picked my choice, which is upgrade, like having a mature data pipelines. For example, like you mentioned, these are CSVs, you're reading data from CSV. Why not have a proper data pipelines and automate the system? When is this automation part actually steps into the picture? Like how mature an organization should be before they start investing into these kind of architecture choices?
Yeah, I think it can be as simple as a manager walks up to you. Let's say you're a senior analyst, and he comes and talks to you. Hey, you know what, Vidhi? I'm having this challenge, man. I'm having to go through multiple emails, multiple spreadsheets, and
Mhm.
I'm having sleepless nights trying to verify all this data. I have to open up every spreadsheet. That's it. If
Hmm.
you the moment you hear that and it's coming from a business person and it's a roadblock for him, that
Hmm.
is your start. It can be that's what, like, actually one of the leaders put it in a very nice way. Everything does not have to be this massive
Yes.
transformation, right? You If you moved from say 20 Excel spreadsheets into a nice platform, I think that's a huge step. Imagine how much effort you have saved. All the data validations are now happening. All the DQ checks are happening. Nobody is opening multiple sheets. Data is coming as per the SLA. You have talked to all the people. You build the pipeline, right? So that is automation. That is also automation. I think it's not like automation always has to be this shiny object in the room, right?
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a syndrome we have. Actually, I'm just bringing that in because one of my friends talked about it. but he talked about it in life in general, because in life we always have that affinity towards that shiny object. Hey, you know what? That's what is going to change everything for me. But think about it. If it changes for you, I think it's great. We will take it. But what I'm saying is, any step you make towards reducing the burden, I think that is automation, right? Even if I build a pipeline for this person, I think I've solved a major business problem for him, because if he's taking 1 week to send out the reports, I will do it in 2 days for him,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Take the Amazon example. When Amazon started, they wanted to deliver books to you, and
Yeah.
at that time the lead time was almost 2 weeks, 2 weeks or
Hmm.
20 days when they started. Today we have Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Same day delivery?
But it, yeah, but it took time, right? Everyone, but the main thing, if you notice, they were on it. Okay, I'm going to reduce it to two
Yes.
weeks I'm going to reduce it to a week. And now
Yeah.
it's like Prime, I want to give even same day delivery if possible. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's very beautifully put together. Yeah. And one another point that you mentioned is that having everybody in a room, right? So I think, can I assume that this is a way of how you structure the teams? Like in my career, I've seen teams can be structured in multiple ways, but
Yeah.
mine is a very short span. Maybe you can put more light on this. Something like I've heard the word pod structure. You can have small pods where you have, key experts from each of those domains, UI and data engineers and all. Or another word for this is team of teams. You make a core team that is able to deliver a certain feature or a product in X weeks, like you mentioned. So, what, in your opinion, is the right way to structure a team? If your goal is aggressive, you want some core team to work together, or it's a like horizontal, uh, a big team, but you don't really know who is going to work on what. So then like, I see accountability might become a problem. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I feel that to the bigger question you had about scale, right? Especially for business and organization, I think that is that is the thing we need to crack. How do you structure organizations or teams so that you can achieve that scalability? Because the organizations themselves can become a bottleneck, right? For example, if you have too deep, if it's too layered, if there are too many layers, and if it encourages bureaucracy and a lot of processes, then your whole objective is going to be not achieved. So I think to answer your question, right, the way we did it was that uh, we were all data. Okay, what we did was we found the commonality among the lot of the people who are going to actually execute it. So you have like two broad-based categories, right? One are the strategy people, your portfolios and your intake folks who are more driven by the pipeline of work. And then you have all the people who are familiar with handling data in different aspects. It can be data engineers, analysts, or scientists, or you know the whole 9 yards. So the way we did it was we split all the data people into different teams, where everyone had key focus areas. Okay, but your overall objective was the same. All the teams eventually are adding something into that main bucket,
Mhm.
and we divided the teams like that. Okay, so some was focused mainly on sourcing and ingestion. Some was mainly focused on modeling and what is providing the provision layer. Then there was other team which was mainly built in APIs, right? Let's say these three, and all the three are connected to the portfolio. So everyone is accountable to the same end goal, right? And then of course every team will have a dependency. Like I am a transformation guy, I have a dependency on sourcing APIs as depending on the transformation people. So that's how we structured it. And yeah, initially when we started, to be very honest, we were very waterfallish. Even though
Yeah,
we were agile, everybody was waterfallish. Everybody had that. No, it was so ingrained here, too deep,
I
that we
know.
were behaving like a waterfall in agile.
Mhm.
Then it took around 4 or 5 PIs before we are able to come around that. and
Yeah.
say, you know what, we need to start having the smaller loaves of bread instead of the whole bread. And I think that's when it really started sinking in. Okay, let's start chipping away, right? Let's start
Hmm.
chipping away and deliver this well-defined piece of work. So I think that's how we structured it. And I want to tell you one more thing. There was one thing very interesting happened while we were doing it. Uh, Metadata is a huge, part of data projects. They
Hmm.
were finding it very challenging and to run in a sprint fashion.
Hmm.
Okay, the sprint 2 week sprint was not working for them
Yes.
because think about it. When you're building metadata, there's a lot of discussion. You have to engage a lot of people, and sometimes you're not going to get the answer the same day, right? So they were not delivering very effectively. Somebody came up with an idea within Agile. Why not we become Kanban instead of Scrum?
Hmm.
And that did the trick because now in Kanban, it's more about queues.
Yes.
You have your work in process, what can be taken up, or what is ready to be delivered. And that team alone operated in a Kanban type format, and it worked great for them. They were churning out metadata updates like that because they didn't have the pressure, 2 week pressure, but
Hmm.
they were able to pivot and say, you know what I will do? I'll put the most core elements to be solved first, and then
Hmm.
everything else will be prioritized based on the work that we are delivering. And
Hmm.
that was a very interesting tangent that happened in my experience. And that's when I realized that when you're agile, it's not always necessary to be Scrum. You can be
Yes.
Kanban too.
Yeah.
So,
No, that's, coming from Scrum and, the way one should run sprint to how you explained about the Kanban thing. I think that's a really good example because, yeah, being time pressed and not being able to deliver in terms of, wrapping that work within sprint, it's difficult for the teams. Yeah, that's very well said.
right, right.
And when you mentioned about the pod structure, that there were certain folks, like one who was working on API part, the other person was responsible for transformation layer, and the third person for another work, right? And everybody's working towards one common goal. Are these works mutually exclusive? Like, do these people really need to talk to each other? If so, then how do they know that what kind of impact my work is going to create on the person who will take it over from here? Is it sequential or not? And if that happens, are there certain kind of conflicts within the team in terms of how we are going to design the system? How do you resolve the conflicts within the team in that
Yeah,
case?
I think, yes, yeah, we ran into that. The moment we formed
Yeah.
the teams, that was the first problem we ran into. And I think the way you try to alleviate that problem, I'm not going to say eliminate, because in any
Hmm.
form of any way you organize, there is going to be some negative, floating around.
Hmm.
But the way we alleviated it is everybody was in the main planning session, so everybody
Hmm.
knows the work that's coming. You already have your dependency mapped out right before you leave the planning session. Then
Hmm.
you have your sprint planning where you further refine and figure out, okay, to exactly what you said. I'm building this API. So if I'm building this API, I need this database structure. I need these elements to be ready. So you work
Hmm.
with your data team as part of the planning and figure out, hey, how are you going to deliver?
Hmm.
Right? And then you have another refinement of, obviously you can't deliver everything at once. Can you give me like shell structures so that
Hmm.
I can build a skeletal API first, just to make
Hmm.
sure that this is what I'm going to expect from you. And then later, when you populate with the data, in the other sprint, we'll test with the data. So we have to find a very creative ways of breaking it up, right? The
Hmm.
other one is, if you are sending a file to somebody, I have to send a file. Okay, there's an export. Say it has like 500 elements. Okay,
Hmm.
how are we going to build this interface in 2 weeks? It's not going to happen,
Hmm.
right? So what we said, we reviewed the file structure. We found that there are some hard coded. I know hard coded is not a good term, but to the requirement I'm talking, there were some hard coded fields. There were some very simple mapping fields which are one to one. Then there are medium level transformation. Then there is complex transformation. So we prioritize the hard coded and the simple map to map can be done first.
Hmm.
But we'll provide a shell. We'll provide a shell with all the columns. It's dummied out, right? Dummy values.
Hmm.
And then every sprint, we will start packing it with data as we do the transformation. So it was something, a concept. We had to go to an agile workshop again, where we
Hmm.
had to understand the concepts of horizontal and vertical slicing of work,
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So, so I think what I'm trying to say is it is a continuous learning. So it's not like, oh, I went to Agile, I know everything about Agile. No,
Hmm.
it doesn't work that way. You are
Hmm.
constantly forming your teams. You're making these small adjustments here and there. For example, the whole notion of having like a systems or an infrastructure team, right? Who want to be managing your servers, making sure they're all up and running. You
Hmm.
want see another thing you have to do is testing. You have to manage
Yes.
all these multiple environments. One team cannot be doing everything, right? So you
Yeah.
need a dedicated team. So I think it evolved that way. That's how we did it. And
Hmm.
yes, the points you said are absolutely on point, because you will encounter those challenges, but
Hmm.
you have to be a little creative about how you can address it. And that's where the collaboration comes, right? Everybody has to, yeah, we will do that. So I
Yeah.
think that was a big part of it.
Yeah, and I just want to learn from your experience that have you ever encountered that if it is a technical discussion, sometimes it goes beyond technical discussion and it becomes somebody's prerogative that my ideas or suggestions are to be taken care of and these are more important than, or maybe these are better suited for what we are aiming to build. So it now becomes a personal choice rather than what is exactly good for the team or for the actual end product that we are building. So how do you kind of make everyone take it away from personal angle? Like it's coming from my area of expertise and I'm the only one good person who can give you advice on this. And then you bring everyone together to think as a team and then work towards one common goal and not take it like at a personal expertise level. So is this something that you ever encountered? And if so, how did you
Yeah.
deal with it?
Yeah, I think you're asking great questions, and yes, it happens, right?
Yeah.
See, what happens is sometimes, in my experience, people sometimes get very obsessed with titles, uh, like the title of your position,
Mm.
uh, you know, and that can be a big roadblock. And in Agile, what happens is you become more horizontal, or you become more flat.
Hmm.
Okay, you don't have hierarchy. If you're a hierarchy based person, moving into that will take you some time, because you have to remove that mindset.
Yeah.
Hey, I had so many people reporting to me. Now I have nobody reporting to me.
Yeah.
That is a very personal thing, right?
Mhm.
But when I think that's where the leadership really plays a big role. That's why I
Mm.
said uh, they have to be very honest about, hey, it's for the betterment, of the organization and product.
Mm.
And if you contribute to that, you're also kind of elevating yourself,
Mm.
being a more value added person. So I think
Yeah.
the way I would answer that is, I think the question I would ask is, maybe this is my share is, instead of going after titles and all that, that's all great. But the biggest question you answer is, am I providing value to this
Hmm.
work stream? Am I providing value to this organization? Keep asking that question, because that question will make you ask the right questions
Hmm.
to your managers, and hopefully there you will find the right placement of where you need to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think it is not easy. I am also in the same boat, because the human mind always oscillates between that two
Yeah.
endpoints, right? You are either in this direction or that direction.
Yeah.
But I think you have to solve that. And if you do it systematically,
Mhm.
hopefully you can not worry about all the other stuff,
Mhm.
and focus on more value added stuff. And yeah, and those conversations are not easy, right? It is
Yeah.
always difficult. But I think you have to be very honest, and hey, I want to address that. You keep
Hmm.
you keep bringing the people, you keep bringing the having the one-on-ones or
Mhm.
any sidebar conversations, and be very honest about it. And
Yeah.
and also tell them that they will also look for opportunities for you, right?
Yeah.
And if you are very committed and you're going, what do you say, beyond your expected line of work, that all will be noticed.
Yeah.
And uh, and i think and i think that's a gray area, right? We hope that it will be noticed.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel leaders and the people above you are very important. Hopefully they will take notice. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but that's my observation, I think.
No, actually, for a big takeaway for me when you mentioned that is honesty. I think when you're being honest with the team and when you tell them I think the single solution for all the problems when we are working as a techies or in corporate culture is value. Are we adding
Yes.
value as a team player? So I think when you're a team player, you're working together, you are able to meet the organization goal as well. But one thing when you mentioned is the having the right leaders, and I have a little stance on this, like is having a right leader equivalent to having the right culture? Are they one and the same thing? Because I think there's a lot of interdependency, and a right leader might not have a right culture where they can, you know, foster the values that they bring. So how does this work? You've been there, and you might have seen such kind of situations, if I'm not wrong, and then shed some light on are they are they are they good together? Do they
Are
go
they one and the
together?
same?
Yeah. Yeah,
Right,
they're one and
right,
the same.
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, yeah, that's a very good one. And I think that is probably a very gray area, right? Because the
Hmm.
biggest thing there is you have to give yourself some time to really understand that, right? Because now the and also maybe the one thing that will help crack that question is, what are the business strategies and outcomes. And
Hmm.
if the leader is actually reflecting that to you, are they coming
Hmm.
and talking about that to you? Are they constantly being transparent about
Hmm.
those things with you, right? Hey, there is something coming up, like say we are doing something new or some type of POC, uh, which is aimed at improving the business, and we were looking for people who would like to participate. Just being transparent about that, I think is a very good sign, because there the leader is allowing the others to participate, or the other one could be, let's say a lot of people have innovation type of events, right?
Hmm.
Making it very open, making everyone to join, even if you don't have the expertise, join a team where there are some expert people and you can join that team and learn from them. So I think you have to see that at every level, Vidhi. I think it's just not individual conversations
Yes.
on improving my career. I think you have to now go horizontal and see, are they talking about all the different objectives and outcomes and the business
Hmm.
problems, and make you think, right,
Hmm.
if you can solve that business problem, right? For
Hmm.
example, you might come and say, hey, we are having this turnaround issue with servicing, right?
Hmm.
It is taking 2 to 3 days. And he comes and makes that statement. And something can go off in your head and say, hey, you know what? I have an idea to streamline that process and cut it to 24 hours,
Hmm.
right? So there you have an idea and you are solving a business problem. But then the leader did the right thing of exposing that problem to you, right?
Yeah.
So, so I think uh, the culture has to be reflected in the leader, and the leader has to be very transparent about that
Hmm.
to the whoever the person is. So what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say is, if the leader is very siloed, yeah, everybody has to grow. Obviously,
Hmm.
that's not an that's obviously understood. But the leader should go beyond that and throw light on all the different areas in the business and
Hmm.
encourage that mobility or give you that opportunity. So I think if they are doing both, I think that's great. I think that tells that you have a great culture, because
Hmm.
someone would come and say, man, my this guy is great because maybe he's just checking off the boxes for whatever you are saying.
Yeah.
That's he might be a great leader for you because he's a yes man, right? He's
Hmm.
just agreeing to whatever you are saying. We don't want those type of leaders. We want
Yeah.
leaders who will have constructive feedback, constructive criticism, open up opportunities, and make sure that you are always tied in with the ultimate goal of the organization. Those are the leaders you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, those are some of the qualities like even I used to think that, would be there in a leader. And when you mention it, it looks like, yeah. But for transparency, when you mentioned, I have one follow up on this. Like when transparency is, okay, let me put it in a very different way. So it's like transparency should be leader minus one level, or how recursive can that transparency be? Like to what extent the people who are working on the ground, will that transparency go that deep to them? Or does it get
Yeah,
capped someplace?
so I think that will be a tough one, but I these are some of the things I've seen. Let me answer
Hmm.
it that way.
Yeah.
When we took up on Agile, the leader was very transparent. He will be there for all the planning sessions. He will have his own set of meeting with the portfolio, but he will make sure that all the people who come there are connected with the team. So they are
Hmm.
bringing the team's problems there. Okay. So he always had that connect. So at any point in time, you know what's wrong with any team.
Hmm.
Because either two things are happening. Either he was there or somebody else was doing the good job of funneling to him. So that is
Hmm.
one way I've seen. The second way I've seen is where the leaders themselves will do what we call as skip level meetings,
Yeah.
where they will go uh, beyond their immediate directs. They'll go one or two levels below, and they will
Hmm.
have calls and they will talk and hear from them directly. That is number
Yeah.
two.
Hmm.
Number three is when the leader himself will make these site visits. They'll come to different locations, have like
Hmm.
a town hall, bring all the team members, talk to them. Because in bigger organizations, is a bigger challenge
Yeah.
because of the size. In smaller organizations, hopefully you can tackle that pretty
Yes.
easily. But I think those are the three effective ways I've seen the
Yeah.
good ones doing it, because they always want that pulse, and that's
Yes.
how they can build that transparency. And some people have even come and told me that, hey, you can send email to me directly if you have a problem,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
people have that hesitation, right? When you have levels, oh, I should not send. But there are some who come and break the ice and say, okay, bring on your idea, I will respond. So I
Yeah.
think if you hear those type of things,
Hmm.
I think you probably are in the right place.
Yeah, you correctly mentioned because if the team size is too big, I think it will become too overwhelming for the leader to check pulse of everyone on the team and have that inside out
Correct.
information of how team is feeling. But yeah, having the right folks who can funnel down that feeling back to the leader is also a good way to manage team at scale, again scale.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
and at a couple of places when you mentioned highlighting the dependencies related to project, right, what I've seen is that dependency is something that you already know beforehand when you're starting a project. Maybe that we can still do a brainstorming session at the beginning of a project and maybe at a periodic level. But what about those dependencies or delinquencies, if I may use the word, that happens on the flow? Like for data project, it's definitely the case, something or the other crops up when you are actually into the project, right? So those are unforeseen risks. So how do you manage those? What is the right way to like acting on the go, right? So when you're making decisions on the move, so what is the right way to deal with that?
Yeah, I think if you run into a problem, say in your DSUs, the daily stand-ups, so what first the way it happens is you have a blockage now, right? So
Hmm.
that's the early indication things get blocked. And the moment you
Hmm.
get blocked, you immediately have to do very quick escalations. All your product manager, POs, everybody
Hmm.
are on it. They try to assess, oh, is this really a roadblock or is it just a case of simple misunderstanding? If it is
Hmm.
a roadblock, bring in your stakeholders immediately
Hmm. Hmm.
and or so the two things will happen. Either you will find a solution the same day, or you are going to set the expectation to the stakeholder that this is going to be not be delivered
Hmm.
in this sprint, because we have encountered something which we didn't anticipate, right?
Yeah.
Either the data is not going to be available in the time that was promised, or
Hmm.
the architecture also needs some rework. It can be
Hmm.
any of those things. So I think you have to communicate that. So the big thing is communication, accepting the
Hmm.
problem, communicating the problem,
Hmm.
making the stakeholders aware, and then you will have to have the grooming on, okay, how are we going to address the issue.
Hmm.
Are there any again, you have to break it down. What is the
Hmm.
scope of the issue? uh, can we break it down to smaller chunks and the teams can handle it, or
Hmm.
is there some type of a big revamp that needs to happen? Then collectively, you'll have to push it into the backlog, and then you'll have to come back to it when the timing is right. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it will be collection of voices that will make that decision, right?
Yeah.
We have had that happen where we have gone all the way, probably 70% of the way, and somebody came and said, "Oh, wait a second, that's not the right way you
Feasible.
determine that
Yeah.
thing." So, you know, it's like obviously our frustration, there is some anger, but then we go
Yeah.
back and revisit and chip it away. And I think Vidya, one thing I've seen is right, the temperament is extremely important. I
Yes.
learned this, or probably the biggest takeaway in my whole professional experience. You need to have a good temperament. I mean, temperament meaning it's not like you're always very saying yes to everything, and at the same time you don't want to be that repulsive
Hmm.
personality. There is a certain level of temperament required, because you have to have the mentality to experiment.
Hmm.
You should know how to experiment. Yeah, I'll experiment, I will fail, I will learn. You have to have that.
But correct me, Ram, like experiment when you do as an individual, it's still valid. But as a leader, if somebody fails, then you're not just failing as yourself, you're failing together as a team, and there are a
No,
lot
I
of
agree.
emotions from the
No, I
team
agree.
involved, right? So then
Yeah, I
at
agree.
some
Yes.
point that finger pointing comes, oh, the vision was not right, and hence it happened, right?
No, see, that is there, and I think we have to own it, right? It happened.
Yeah.
For us also, the same thing happened where we, like I told you, that scenario. Oh
Yes.
no, you're giving me the wrong indications. With this, I'm going to tell the wrong customers the wrong things.
Hmm.
That was a huge blow. But yeah, of course, we can go finger pointing. But yeah, yes, we do agree. Yeah, it is a
Yeah.
problem. The process did not pick up the right thing, and we have, after that, you have a cooling period, and you go and start fixing it. But I think that honesty has to come through. And
Yes.
I think, yeah, it takes a lot of, I would say, guts to do that, because when you, it's like, say, you go into production, second day of production, everybody is going crazy, and to
Yes.
say that, what, man, I missed that joint.
Yes. Yeah. True.
or somebody hard coded something somewhere. You
Yes.
know?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah,
there are so
yeah,
many
I
places
know.
things can go wrong. Yeah.
But then let's face it. It happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to. Yeah, and I think that's always a tough call, whether it's going to have long term consequences for the person or not. That's always a toss up. But then take the let's look at it this way. There are a lot of companies that have almost gone down, but they came back.
Yes. Yeah.
Imagine the level of tough decisions or situations they would have to face, right, and
Yeah.
come out of it. So you tell it. Now, I have told it. It has happened under my nose. Things have
Yeah.
got missed.
Yeah.
In the rush, you read. But the main thing is being open about it. Don't try to never try to. hush it up because it will come back
Hmm.
in the most brutal way possible. So
Yeah, so
because
true.
let's think about it, right? You have a couple of days of misery and you'll be over
Hmm.
with it. But if you
Yeah.
don't, then it can be a lifelong impact. So don't do that. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I also learned early on is that you'll never know unless you try. So even if you're gonna fail and all, at least for next time, you know that this is what at least I'm not supposed to do and I
Right.
shouldn't be doing next time onwards. Yeah. So I
Correct.
think Ram, it's been a great time. I've had a lot of questions. I asked you almost all of them, and I think I can still keep on asking you a lot more given the kind of wisdom this whole episode had. I wish I could take more time from you and talk longer. But for now, I just want to ask you as a parting note that is there something that you want to pass it on to the folks who are looking to join the data industry or who are already working in it? What kind of advice would you want to point to them?
Yeah, definitely. What I would say is be honest about your work.
Mhm.
Uh, be persistent.
Yeah.
My dad always felt that I was never patient, but I realized that very late because you need to stick around. If you want to be, it's like let's take the game of cricket. If you
Mhm.
want to play the game, you have to be on the field. So
Yeah.
be on the field. We will get hurt. There will be slips and falls, but dust it off. Take a
Mhm.
couple of days off. Come back and be in it. Be in it. Because if you decide to be out of it, then that's the end of it. So don't do that. Definitely don't do that. If you want to be in data, just enjoy the process. It's not a very nice process, but just enjoy the process. So, you will experiment, you will find new things, you will meet great people. But all of that can happen only if you are persistent and if you are honest about your work. So that will be the biggest takeaway for me. And
Mhm.
never shy away from experimenting and explaining your viewpoints. Build
Yeah.
that courage. Attend lot of lectures or attend where good speakers are speaking. Learn from them. Join groups where you can participate and start to express yourself. That's what I would
Yeah.
say.
These are, I think, valid for me as well, Ram, because in my early days, I remember when I was in college, one of my teacher mentioned that, there is never a bad question. So like you're saying that ask a lot of questions, experiment, and then observe the leaders around you, how they are taking decisions. I think it's a lot to learn. I keep on learning with folks like experts when I talk to you and others on the LinkedIn and, and at any other platform. I've heard a lot of your talks as well. So yeah, these are some true wisdom, pearls of wisdom that I've taken from the session today. So thanks a lot, Ram, for taking time out and sharing your knowledge with us. I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Sure. Thank you, Vidhi, and congratulations once again for what you have achieved. Expecting to learn from you and see more things from you in the AI space. And thank you once again for the opportunity and wishing you the very best of luck.
Thank you so much. I think coming from you, Ram, it's really an honor for me.